Hello everyone, Carnasa here and welcome back to Kerbal Gets Real. We're now in 1966 Part 2, where New Dawn 1 will finally be reaching Jupiter. We have a Mars transfer window coming up this year, which we are definitely going to utilize, and we need to rebuild after the disastrous events of the last episode. We are going to be going to the newly renamed Ellen Cox Memorial Station, and hopefully we will be expanding it. So right at the start of this episode, we are going to be joining New Dawn 1 for its Jupiter encounter at the very start of this half of the year on the 1st of July. What we're doing here is we are performing a quick inclination change so that we can actually get into the plane of Ganymede, because that's obviously where we're going to want to go with this thing. We are now just capturing at Jupiter, and our apoapse at Jupiter is going to be incredibly high, so we use less delta V, raising our periapse so that it is in line with Ganymede. You can see I've created a maneuver node there, and we do have a Ganymede encounter, which is brilliant, but it's going to take 208 days for us to actually reach that maneuver node. So we are now going to be spending some time in the vehicle assembly building. Now, I did spend a lot of time in the VAB in the live stream for this episode. I haven't included that in this actual episode, but if you want to go see me building Mizbu and Far Frontiers, then they will be in the most recent Kerbal Gets Real livestream. What we're working on here, though, is going to be MONA, and that stands for the Mars Orbital Advanced Networking Relays. So what this is going to be a communications network around Mars, very much like the communications network that I have got around Earth that I put up in 1960. So we're going to be going to Mars with humans, maybe not relatively soon, well, at some point soon, and we're going to want to have constant communication on the surface of Mars. So that's exactly what this is going to be. This is going to be the start of the infrastructure that allows us to actually get to Mars and stay there. So this is very exciting. It's not a particularly exciting mission, but the thought of what it will lead to is definitely exciting. It's a very simple rocket. You can see there we've got the Pegasus X2 to actually get us to Mars. And then, of course, we're going to be launching this into low Earth orbit on top of an Adventurer 2 launch vehicle. So now that we have finished designing up our Mars vehicles, well, it's going to be a while for that Mars transfer window to come around. You can see 92 days on Kerbal Alarm Clock there. So what we're going to be doing is turning our focus to the Ellen Cox Memorial Station. You can see we've got the James Peters module currently being rolled out to the launch pad, and it's going to be our first extension to the station around the moon. So here we are on the 31st of July, 1966, the James Peters module for the Ellen Cox Memorial Station launched on top of an Icarus Super 66. Now, the thing with this module, well, it should extend our life on the station by about a year. It will provide more life support for about a year for 3 astronauts, so that's useful. However, that isn't the main focus of this mission. No, you can see it all in its glory now. What this is going to be is really a docking port section of the station. So we have the James Peters module, we also have the Ellen Cox module. Not the Ellen Cox module, the Bonnie Ellis module. To go on the Ellen Cox station, they are exactly the same, they are identical. They are going to be mirrored perfectly on the station. The way the station is designed, they will fit together on opposite sides, and it should hopefully look quite good. Now, I have designed a reusable lunar lander, which we will be seeing at some point soon, not in this episode because I didn't get to launching that in this episode, for reasons that we will see very shortly. But I needed somewhere to place those lunar landers on this space station because this is going to be our base camp for actually descending down to the moon. So we want to have our landers on there. They're reusable, so we can refuel them and use them over and over again. A mission that I really wanted to do. It saves time on actually sending vehicles back over here, but yes. So actually docking these two together caused all kinds of issues. That happened. I lost control over the James Peters module, and because I lost control over the James Peters module, I went to the tracking station and came back, and they decided to blow up. So actually, that's not quite what happened. The James Peters module did blow up, but the Ellen Cox Memorial Station was fine. However, it was put in an uncontrollable spin, so I decided to use range safety on that section of the mission. I did notice that the station had insufficient avionics on it to actually control it. So what I have done, I have redesigned the station, and we are going to be launching that later on in this episode. Now, that mission has cost me so much money. So we had to pay out 1.5 million funds to the families of the astronauts that tragically lost their lives. And of course, we have been spending a lot of money on actually doing the launches to put all of the different compartments of this space station into a low lunar orbit. Hopefully, once it's all been done though, we should get a lot of money back by actually completing that contract and maybe a few other contracts as well. Although I'm not particularly hopeful. But now we are going to turn our focus to SM-64 for its Deimos descent on the 3rd of October 1966. Now this landing took a very long time to do. Obviously you are moving at very slow speeds around Deimos. It actually was going to take us 50 minutes after we did our burn to actually land on the surface. Luckily, that wasn't real time. I could time warp through a lot of it, but it still took a long time because I did run out of communications. We were on the dark side of Deimos, which meant we couldn't control this thing at all and just bounced around for a bit. But now we're going to be back at the Space Center for just a moment because we've got our Mars transfer window coming up. So here is the first launch of the Mars transfer window. It is Mona on the 20th of October 1966, launched on top of an Adventurer 2 launch vehicle. Mona is going to be the first mission that we send. I think this is probably the best mission to send first because this is our communications network. So if we send this first, obviously we are going to have communications around Mars so that when Mizbu arrive and Far Frontiers, which will be the last thing we launch in this transfer window, arrive, we should have constant communications with Earth. It's going to be brilliant. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to set this up in time before those two arrive, but this is definitely going to be the first thing that I focus on. Anyway, Mona got into orbit just fine, and now we are going to be plotting out our way to Mars. We're going to light up that RL-10 transfer stage, the Pegasus X number 2, to get ourselves on an encounter with Mars, and that will be that for this mission. So, now we're going to turn our focus to Mizbu, the Mars Incredible Scanning Biome Optical Orbital Satellite. So this is a mission that has both an altimetry scanner on it and a biome scanner. And what we're going to do is we're going to try and set them both up in a polar inclination of Mars. This is one of the missions that I did build in the live stream. If you want to go check out the build for that, it will be in the live stream. So yeah, I think, can I put a link to that video in this on a card? I'll try and put a link to that video in this anyway. So if you want to check it out, feel free to go check that out. But once again, we were able to get ourselves into a nice orbit. Once again, we are going to be firing up that Pegasus 2 transfer stage to make our way over to Mars. I'm going to be saying Mars a lot in this brief period of the video. Well, it is a Mars transfer window, and we do have 3 missions that we are going to be launching. But there we go, we can see that actually we have pretty much got a polar inclination all set up there with that maneuver node. Once we perform it, we're going to need to move our final stage away from the Pegasus stage so we can fire that up and not go smashing into it. That would be a bit bad, but there we go, we have it. We have got our encounter with Mars, and it will be polar, so once we get there, it'll be really easy to capture. But finally, we have the last mission of this Mars transfer window, Far Frontiers, on the 23rd of October, 1966. This is going to be launched on an Icarus Super 66, because this mission is big. This is going to be our Mars sample return. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going to Mars. We're going to leave an orbiter in orbit whilst we land a lander. The lander will then recover some samples and then come back up, meet with the orbiter. We will ditch the lander, and then we will be sending the orbiter back to Earth, where hopefully we can recover that at Earth. A very complicated mission, probably the most complicated mission that I have done so far in this series. So it's very exciting. It's going to pave the way for future human landings on Mars. But we have lit up that Minotaur stage. We are now on our approach to Mars. We're going to have to do a little bit of configuring with that encounter. but hopefully it shouldn't take us an awful lot of delta V to really fine-tune our encounter. We want to save as much delta V as possible. There we go. There is our slight correction. Yeah, we want to save as much delta V as possible for when we actually get to Mars. So those missions will get to Mars in around 320 days, so just under a year. So we've got a little while to wait for that. And obviously, Far Frontiers, that mission is going to take a very long time indeed, because, well, we've got to get to Mars, and then we've got to wait for a decent transfer window to get back. The amount of delta V that I've got on the return stage is just enough to actually get a good delta V transfer back. So yeah, we need to be very, very efficient with that craft. But here we are once again launching the Ellen Cox Memorial Station on the 6th of November 1966. This is the upgraded one, the one that hopefully should have enough avionics to control this space station once we are in a low lunar orbit. And there is something about avionics that I didn't really take into consideration with this whole space station when I was designing this space station, which we will get to later on. It's a little bit silly of me, but it's not the end of the world. It's not going to cause any issues like we had in the last episode. But there we go. We have kind of seen this launch once already, so I have kind of, well, skipped a lot of this out, but we have managed to capture at the moon. Now, one thing I want to say about this as well, another thing about this mission that went funny, I have pruned a lot of my mods recently, and I think my near future solar panels had all been deleted from RO Solar. So the actual original Ellen Cox Memorial Station lost its big solar panels. So that was another reason why actually we needed to put up another one. But here we have the Minotaur stage using its final ignition to send us crashing back down into the moon's surface. There we go. And it did exactly the same again. For some reason, the avionics wanted to last a bit longer. But with the launch of the Ellen Cox Memorial Station Redux or redone or rehab, no, I don't know. It's we've got a station around the moon again. I was almost going to say Mars then, but no, it's the moon. We will be going to Mars with a station at some point. I don't know how long that's going to be, but we definitely want to actually go to Mars with a station. I think I want a station around Mars before I land on there. I think that's probably the way to go for it. I'm not sure. We'll see when we get to that kind of stage. But we have now got our astronauts trained up for our mission to send them on the CMES crew shuttle number 1. I've decided to call it number 1 because originally the shuttle that failed in the last episode was the Clog crew. So we've renamed the station, so it's a new series of rockets. But once again, here we go. We are going to be launching the Bonnie Ellis module on the 6th of December 1966. Now, December launches are never a good thing in this space agency, so we're going to have to hope and pray that this all works. But actually, the launch worked a charm. We managed to get into low Earth orbit with no issues whatsoever. There we are, firing up the Minotaur stage to get us over to the moon. And you can see we finally have sun tracking solar panels, and they are glorious because they can track the sun, so we don't have to orient our craft to the sun. It's amazing. It's absolutely wonderful. And there are going to be a lot of these on the Ellen Cox Memorial Station. But here we are coming now to the moon with the Bonnie Ellis module, where we are going to hopefully capture. And any minute now, there we go, the AJ-10-137 service module engine has fired up, which is going to be our engine that will capture us around the moon. So this is a very, very weighty craft. The mass of this craft is around 40 tons when we get to the moon, so we did need a big hypergolic engine to actually capture us. There you can see we have got our intersect with the Ellen Cox Memorial Station. Here we are coming in now, and we're going to burn so that we can slow ourselves down. We didn't want to go shooting right past this station. Now, I did cut out a lot of the docking for this, because this docking took about an hour in real life. It took such a long time. That module was so unwieldy. The Bonnie Ellis module was so unwieldy. It took so long. And I've got to do that all over again with the James Peters module. But finally, we are just going to take that capture stage down once again, and we are going to smash it into the surface of the moon. So the Ellen Cox Memorial Station has got its first extension with the Bonnie Ellis module. Now, like I was saying earlier on in the video, that should hopefully extend the life of the station for any crew on there by about a year. Now, I've not shown you the tech tree for a really long time, so I thought actually let's show you kind of where I am. And well, we've got a lot to research, but we are actually getting relatively close to the end of the tech tree now in 1966. So that's all rather good. Obviously, we've not researched a lot of it, but we're getting there. We are getting there. And yeah, so we've definitely got a lot of upgrades to look forward into, well, the near future. But here we are, the final launch of 1966 on the 20th of December, 1966. It is going to be Crew ECMS number 1. Now, this is going to be our mission where we actually send crew to the Ellen Cox Memorial Station. And we are going to hope and we are going to pray that it goes a lot better than the last crewed mission that we sent to a lunar space station. Now, I have been in the vehicle assembly building and I have completely fixed all of the issues that were wrong with the last shuttle that I sent to the moon. We have definitely got deep space avionics on that final stage, and we have a lot more oxygen in this craft. So all of the issues that happened in the last launch, well, not the last launch of a crewed mission to the moon, well, they have been fixed. So you can see we have now got ourselves an encounter with the moon. And what I'm doing here is we do have a crewed lunar orbit with 3 contract that we want to pick up, and our inclination has to be above 60 degrees. So I'm creating a maneuver while still in Earth's sphere of influence to try and raise our inclination to above 60 degrees. And what I'm actually going to do, rather than using that LR87 LH2 engine to perform this maneuver, no, I'm going to do it all with the RCS on there. 18 meters per second of RCS, but we can do it. I said in my tips and tricks video that RCS is absolutely wonderful, and that means that we can get away without actually using one of those ignitions on the LR87 LH2 engine, which actually, as it turns out, was a really smart idea, because we are going to need that later on in the mission to actually change our inclination when we are around the moon, so that we can get back into the inclination with the Ellen Cox Memorial Station. But we have arrived at the moon. We're going to fire up that LR87 LH2 engine to perform our capture and get ourselves into a low lunar orbit. And we are going to wait around here for a considerable amount of time. I think it's a day and 8 hours. Yes, 1 day and 8 hours that we have to wait around the moon in this particular orbit. So we are going to skip through that very, very quickly. And as soon as that's done, well, we have a space station to meet up with. We are going to be the first crew to actually arrive at a space station around the moon. Here we are, using that LR87 LH2 engine for its final time to actually change our inclination so that we are in the same plane as the space station. And like I was saying earlier on, it was very fortunate that I didn't use all of the ignitions on this engine, because that burn was 1,317 meters per second of delta V, and we would not have had enough delta V in this craft to actually, well, complete the mission if we hadn't have saved that engine's use. But here we are, coming up to the Ellen Cox Memorial Station now, and I was really pleased with how close I got with this burn to actually slow ourselves down. And of course, finally, we are going to be docking to the Ellen Cox Memorial Station, and there we go. We have docked. We have sent crew to the Ellen Cox Memorial Station, and they survived. They have made it, and they are going to be spending probably the next 90 days on board this space station. It's going to be a very long time for this crew. And that was it. That was the last launch of 1966 Part 2. And, well, 1966, the year in general, has been a bit rubbish. We've blown up a lunar space station. We've killed 3 crew. Yeah, it's probably been the worst year on history for this series so far. But I also just want to say thank you everyone for subscribing to my channel. I hit 400 subscribers the other day. Amazing. It's been great. I really hope you are enjoying this series. But yes, If you are enjoying this series, why not give this video a like? If you have really enjoyed this video and would like to continue with the content on my channel, please do consider subscribing. I have been Carnasa, and I will see you later.